webinar. We just
So
missed
I,
the
I think
beginning.
it's important to also understand really what AI is. Number one, it's been around for a very, very long time. It's just that it all shot into the forefront with ChatGPT, which is a product that OpenAI, who Sam Altman and Elon Musk originally formed. But they've been, all of the big companies have had these models, but it was ChatGPT that just made a simple app that everyone can use. But ultimately, you need to think about AI as a platform because it's not just one simple product. OpenAI are really concerned with other companies building products on top of their platform. So just like the internet came out, many years ago, and businesses then started building new businesses on top of the internet that were never possible before, that is exactly what's going to happen with AI. And there's a great phrase, which is that you can think about AI like refrigeration. The people who invented refrigeration, they made some money. But the people who really made the money were Coca-Cola because they invented a new product off the back of this new invention that was never possible before. And they sold it to virtually everyone in the world. And that's what's going to happen. I mean, we're going to talk about will AI take my job a bit later, but ultimately there's going to be so many new jobs created in so many new areas. But also, I just want to instill into everyone that if they keep ahead of thinking about how they can incorporate into AI into their own personal life, their own personal role and job, and then how their company can do it forward, it's going to be a really fascinating transformation over the next while.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, prior to meeting Tom and Colin, I thought ChatGPT was just a very sophisticated Google, and I would use it for like very basic stuff. And until I met Colin and Tom, where they showed me that there's actually prompts that you can use within ChatGPT in order to help you do stuff. And one of the ones is actually how Tom and I got connected, because I was browsing through his LinkedIn, and he had turned ChatGPT into an applicant tracking system, an ATS. So he, by using ChatGPT, literally made an applicant tracking system. Tom, could you explain exactly how you use ChatGPT to do that for free, basically?
Yeah, exactly. So we recruiting into our company, and our intention at the top level of this was to use AI as a co-pilot to our teams, to better assist our teams in recruitment. And our goals were to help the people who were deciding on roles make better decisions, number one. And number two was efficiency as well. Could we speed some areas up? So when we recruit, we put either tests or little obstacles in people's way to gauge motivation and to get more insight about a candidate. But a lot of the job roles, the people that are hiring, they don't have deep knowledge across every single facet of that role. And so we built a tool that enabled us to take candidate questionnaires that we'd asked during the initial stages of the process, and built a model in ChatGPT that would score a candidate's response in relation to the role that they were being recruited for and in relation to our company values and our culture and everything else. So we built this scoring mechanism and model. And in the early stages, we ran all candidates through this AI model, and we manually looked through all candidates as well, right? Because we wanted to check how good it was. And we were hiring quite technical roles. So we wanted, how good their knowledge was, the depth of answer. We wanted relevance to what we were doing, real world case studies. We had a little scoring system. And so we got the AI to shortlist candidates based on that. And then we shortlisted. We did that separately. And then we came back together. And what we found was we had both manually and AI shortlisted 12 of the same candidate. And then we had about 15 each that were different. And we grouped all of those together. So that whole group then formed our new shortlist. And we then continued through the process. And so what it enabled us to do was really give the people who were hiring better insight, better information, a new way of looking at things as they went through that process. But it was the people who were ultimately going to make the decision, right? They were being co-piloted to make better decisions through that process. So it was really interesting, and we see a lot of potential in that in terms of being able to make better decisions and speed things up at the same time, automate some of those tasks and processes.
Exactly. Like I can actually see. So in the old days, we were always told, keep your CV a certain length. It needs to be 1 page long. No one's going to read it if it's more. Well, now I think it's 2 pages long. But I guess with AI and with the things with AI, we can literally put as much information as possible, and that might even be to the to the benefit of the system, is it can read all of this data. And Colin, when you and I were talking about like mass recruitments, or for companies that need to do like really heavy recruitments, is there an AI tool, or like how can we use AI in order to help with this recruitment process and this mass data that we have?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually a perfect use case for this, really. And I think, as we were talking the other day, I've put job applications on LinkedIn and got hundreds and hundreds of replies. It's impossible. No one's going to spend a week, looking through those and trying to track it. But like you said earlier, AI, the more data you give it, the better it will do, and it will do an amazing job. And also, it can help pick out talent, not based on a LinkedIn search, which is, very binary, but it can have a better understanding of the candidate. And like you said, their CV can be longer. We can now go after them based on what skills they have, not just what jobs they've done. And I think that's going to change, in my opinion, the entire recruitment and selection industry over the next while. But I have a friend of mine who's working with, I can't say who, but a huge governmental organization that needs to hire quite literally hundreds of thousands of people over the next 10 years. And if you can imagine the process around that, it's insane. But what they've done is they've implemented an AI digital human avatar who will do first round interviews. And obviously they have a set selection of questions and they will grade the answers, etc. But it can also track their body movements, their confidence, see if they're fidgety, see if they're looking over here to cheat, anything like that. And that will cut down the amount of work they have to do by, orders of magnitude, really, because a lot of these roles would be quite low end, and maybe they're bringing people in from the Far East. I mean, you're not going to do this for a CEO search, but you will see this more, and they are popping up. And there are also a number of companies like myself and Sara have dealt with who enable you to put in your job description, and then it will head out and troll the job boards trying to find who it is for you. And I think that's a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I love it. Like whenever I speak to both you and Tom, I start to get really excited about where the future of work is going from an HR perspective. But I'm going to bring it back down to reality, and I'm going to bring it back down to the normal HR folk who don't have a budget and basically have essentially ChatGPT as a budget, and if even that. And my question over here would be, this is amazing if we have the budget to actually implement these massive HR or recruitment tools. But where we're going now, like for example, I have to put in a job description, I have to put it out on the internet. How can ChatGPT actually practically make my life easier right now as an HR professional? What could I use it to improve? Is it job descriptions? What would you think?
Well, I think there's quite a few things that it can be used to improve right now. But there's taking a step back from that as well. I think we're in a place now where teams are starting, obviously, to see the potential of these tools and what can be done. But there are also pitfalls and risks, and we'll get onto some of those in a bit. But I think it's creating alignment first and foremost in a team in terms of where you want to look, because there are some areas that it's very, very good for, and there's some areas that you don't want to use it for. But the content aspect, it's brilliant at. If you've got content already or similar-ish content, the ability to rewrite it, repurpose it, shorten it, lengthen it, write it for different job roles. We're doing a lot of work at the moment with internal comms teams. They have to manage internal stakeholders. And you imagine in a business, you've got a set of objectives that you're driving, you're trying to galvanize everybody behind, but one of your jobs is to communicate those in different ways. Now, a CTO is going to hear different stuff to a CMO, to a head of HR, right? And now if you have a message that you can give to ChatGPT and you can say, listen, I want to take this and I want to communicate it to this type of person or this type of team, rewrite it for me, but keep my tone of voice. So, and here's a piece I've written. This is my tone of voice. Keep it like this. It can start to speed up stuff like that. Where you find that it doesn't work quite so well is if you don't give it enough direction and you just ask it to come up with something, like if you just ask it to write you a blog post, it tends to like initially it's quite good. You think, oh wow, it's written me a whole blog post, but it sounds nothing like me, and it's not in my tone, or it's not in our brand tone, or that isn't how we write blog posts, or it's got emojis all over it, and so it needs that level of guidance, But that's in the prompting, and you can get that with just a few steps, which is really interesting.
I mean, just on that, Sarah, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine I met the other day, who I think I mentioned to you, he is not a techie guy, he's a sales trainer, but he's dyslexic. And he spent quite a lot of time training ChatGPT on his tone of voice and what he does. And now he can write the basic article and it corrects it for him. And that's an absolute game changer for him. And I think everyone can find something that it will really be transformative.
Okay. I'm actually gonna I'm gonna go to one of the questions that we received from a Q&A member, because we did mention that this would be the basics of AI. And so what would, like, if we were talking to someone who has never used AI before, has never started, doesn't know how to use AI, what would be the step 1, step 2, step 3 in order for them to start using a tool immediately?
Well, I mean, if you take let's take ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT isn't the only game in town, by the way. And also, just to be clear, ChatGPT is a large language model, which is one part of this generative suite. The large language models are good at producing text content. Interestingly, ChatGPT has now integrated an image generator in it, DALL-E. So if you're paying for ChatGPT, which is like $20 a month, I think, you can now select the DALL-E image option in the drop down at the top, and you can create images in there as well. So this is where we're potentially heading, is a lot of these tools merging together. But where I would start is, I would say, sign up for an account on either ChatGPT, or there are others. Google has Bard. There is Claude, which is done by a company called Anthropic. So there's a number of ones you can select, and go in there and start thinking about the things that you do a lot of, and seeing what it can come up with. Now, you have to be a little bit careful of the data you're putting in as well, just to prefix this. Obviously, I wouldn't upload confidential documentation in there, or sensitive information, or people's names and email addresses and stuff like that. So a word of warning around that. But if you think about the stuff you're doing, your example there, Sarah, was really good. Take a job post that you've done previously that you like, and ask it to either write a new version for you, or use this job post as a template and create another one for a role that you're hiring, and start to see what it does. Because it's going to start getting you down that road and start getting you more familiar with what's going on. What would you think, Colin?
And is more better in terms of information? Is the more information you feed ChatGPT better? I'm convinced ChatGPT is female, because she knows everything. And is only seldom wrong.
Yes, to a degree. Yeah, the more that there are techniques around prompting to get a better output. So if you can provide a bit of context at the start of your prompt, that's great. You can, within your prompt, say, I'm going to give you some information, and then I want you to do these things. So you can start to be more directive. So yeah, in general, give it a little bit more than you would in a Google search. You do find if you go on a level and you're trying to do multiple things, they're best to split out into separate prompts. But yeah, give it a bit more, give it a bit of context, a bit of an idea of who you are and what you're trying to do, and you're going to get a better result out of it.
Awesome. And do you have, or actually, Colin, I'm gonna push this question onto you. What are tools that people in this chat or in this the webinar can use immediately, like right now? What can they leave and say, you know what, I'm going to leave this place and I'm going to try and implement this? And why are they such good tools?
So I'm going to show you three real quick. Obviously, Thomas talked about ChatGPT, and there's Claude and Anthropic and all those sort of ones, which I think they're brilliant. But the one that I recommend the most to, friends and family is one called Jack Chat. And the reason is it's this one here. You can literally talk to it. Okay. And I think that is a bit of a game changer. So I didn't actually write this, but do robots dream of electric sheep? And there's the answer. I'm not going to do a demo here because it won't work, but I highly, highly recommend everyone downloads this. And when you have a thought, when you have a question, just you push, you talk, you let go, you get the answer. It is amazing. Okay. A second one I love is this one. Now, you could be on any article at all. Here's a announcement from Meta on, some of their new tools, and it's huge. And maybe you're on The Economist or something like that. I click this little button, which is called ChatGPT Summarize in Chat. And it gives me an amazing short summary of this, just in a couple of bullet points with some emoji. And it just makes consuming large volumes of data so much better. And I love that. Okay. But the best one that I recommend to everyone.
One sec, Colin. I'm gonna go back to the Jack Chat. I just have a question. How is that different than ChatGPT?
Good question. It's built on top of ChatGPT, and it's the same thing, but you don't type, you talk. And for me, and that's thank you for the question. It's a really good point, because for me, when you speak a question, you are more verbose, you are more detailed, and the answer you get is a whole lot better rather than just typing 4 or 5 words. And it's better. Now, you can do speech input in the official ChatGPT app, but I find it works better for this. And everyone who I've recommended it to absolutely loves it.
Perfect.
The next one.
And for this one, how do people actually download that quotation mark? So for people who have no idea how you did that.
It is a plugin for Chrome. So we literally just go, and I will send this out afterwards. You literally just go to this page, click install, and it's always there. And when you're on a certain page, it'll pop up with a little reminder, but you can just use this little green quotation mark and it'll summarize it. I use it multiple times every day, and I highly recommend. The more of these little tools you incorporate into your day, the better an understanding you'll get in the long run.
You just need to pin it to your taskbar as well.
Do.
Once you've installed
it actually walks you through that, Tom, in the installation.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. The best one, though, that I'm going to show is what's called an AI meeting note taker. And this one here is called MeetGeek that I use. There's another one called Fireflies that Tom used. There's another one called Otter, which is great on your mobile. And again, what it does is it listens to your meeting. It's listening right now, and I will send out the meeting notes later. It transcribes everything and then emails you within a couple of minutes with a summary of everything that you have just said. Sara was caught saying something tricky on one of our previous calls, which maybe she'll tell you the story about. But the example I'm going to show you here is it's not just taking that and doing with it. It's what you can now do with this data, which I really, really love, and I highly recommend everyone. So I did a very short training course for a friend of mine's company, and I uploaded the transcript of that, and it's 10, 20 pages, whatever it is. And I just said, this is an informal call to teach about the AI. Please make a comprehensive notes summary for the attendees. And then it goes in and it breaks it down, the introduction, the examples, the applications, the implementation tips, and the key takeaways. And people can read that and just get so much more out of it. But then I went back in and I said, okay, I want you to do it in more detail. And this is what Tom and I are talking about, treat it like a human, go in, drill down, ask it more questions, and it will pump out as much as you possibly want in terms of content. And you can do this across the board, upload your own content. The best story I have is I was working with the CEO of a small startup, and he was drowning with the amount of tasks that he needed to do. I got him on a call with this MeetGeek, and I just asked him all about his business. He told me all about the history and the reason and the vision and how we built it and where it was going and the product and everything like that. I got his marketing person on. They talked about the competition and the segments and, you know, where we're going. Then I got the techie guy on and we talked about absolutely everything. I uploaded multiple ones of these to this one called Claude, and I can then generate new data. So I ask the AI, and you can do this with ChatGPT as well. Write me a blog post or rewrite my website content, or, you know, I would like a one-page sales document, or because he was raising money, I said, outline me the structure of an investment deck based on best practices. Tom, maybe you could talk about a little bit more of the advanced stuff that you've done in terms of the prompts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and what the other interesting thing that Sarah and myself and Colin were talking about the other day on these meeting note takers is, well, one we had coined Meat Geek as the guy, hadn't we? And Fireflies, who I use, is
Fireflies is the female
version, right? At least in our minds. I don't know if that's true or not,
but there's a reason why. You have to explain the reason why.
Why? What? Go on, you explain it. Go on.
The reason why was because Meat Geek was just like a typical guy. He just gave you the details, barely listened, half the time got everyone in trouble because he listened to like half the story and like did the bullet points. And Fireflies was like, well, in a team of, you know, 10 people who were at this meeting, only 8 of them spoke and 20% were disengaged. And they,
yes,
like she gives you more details. Yeah,
that's it. So in exactly that, in the Fireflies version, you can see if people have joined, say, a Zoom call, you can see afterwards who spoke the most. So it does percentages on who spoke the most on the call. You can see words per minute as well. So we were joking with Colin. He's definitely the fastest talker out of the three of us. I've got data to prove that now. So yes. I feel
you don't need data to prove that, Tom.
That previous accusation. But really interestingly, I think from a from a growth, from a leadership perspective, from a team's perspective, you know, engagement and involvement is really, really important. You know, and we were talking about the fact that we've all been in teams, or you've seen teams where potentially the leader in that team isn't leaving enough space for people to step up, and then they're being frustrated that nobody will do stuff. But, you know, if you look on maybe the call log, the person leading the team has spoken for 90% of the meeting, probably not a good thing. You've also got data then on over inclusion versus under inclusion. So are we sending too many people to meetings? If we have a large number of meetings where, you know, half the attendees don't say anything, is that right? You know, possibly not. Or we've got under inclusion. So that other aspect of information that you're able to get back from it, I think is really, really good. And particularly when you're wanting to have conversations, like it's a difficult conversation to have with someone who's running a team, to say, you know, you're taking all the air out of the room. Whereas if you've got a little bit of data to present, it's you know, it's an interesting way of doing it. So I think there's other things in there as well. And of course, you can remove them from the meeting if you don't want them in there. You know, you don't have to record absolutely everything.
And he's talking about Fireflies and Meat Geek, not the actual person.
Not the person, yeah.
just to clarify that. I love that example. So Tom, when Tom and Colin and I were talking about the ways that we could integrate AI and how it could be super useful for not just HR professionals, but professionals in general, in order to reduce the time, help them be really present in the meeting and not waste time taking notes. What I loved about the Fireflies example is it's one of the ways that we could also integrate diversity, inclusion, and equity into like by using AI, because you can have a meeting, but if you see that 80% of people are not actually talking in this meeting or not contributing, then are they really feeling included in this meeting? So it's also a great way to highlight that, and I love that. But let's go back into the woes of being in HR. And one of my biggest woes in HR is when I'm really busy with something, I have a really tight deadline, or there's something that's really pressing that's on my mind, and I keep getting interrupted. So people keep coming into my office like, Sara, how many days off do we get a year? And I'm like, just read the handbook. Like, really? And so is there an AI tool that can get employees to just ask all these questions to it and they get the answers? Like, is there a way to make ChatGPT an employee handbook or something?
Absolutely. So this is one of the best use cases. And when we first connected, I was asking you, I mean, I've been 20 years in big companies, so I kind of know how it is from the other side. And I know how often I was tapping my HR director on the shoulder for these things. But you absolutely can enable your own AI internally, quite simply. And it will be completely private and completely secure and fully within your own policies. And you basically upload your own document like the employee handbook, and you can create a little app or integrate it into Slack, and then they can just go on and go, how many days do I get off? And it can even be personalized, so they know that, oh, I've been here 5 years, so I get an extra day off, or something like that. You can put a huge amount of data into it. Now, you got to be careful about what you put in and in what way. And, Tom will talk a little bit about this, about some data, some processes you do not want to automate, and you don't want to do that. But creating a chatbot, I wrote about this a little while ago on LinkedIn. I personally believe that AI chatbots or AI knowledge bases are going to be the websites of the future. 25 years ago, only a few people had websites. Now everybody has them. It's going to make sense, because the days of going and trying to find something and scrolling and going around, no, now we just ask and we get the answer. People like McKinsey have incorporated a massive one. They've put 20 years worth of data in for their consultants, and it's raised productivity by 20 odd percent. Walmart has done it for their own people in the back end, so that if they want to get product information or help customers, customer service, I promise you, is going to get completely revitalized. And I believe that chatbots, or really what will be as digital humans, as in avatars, will take over as the first line support and the way we interact with brands within a few years.
Love it. Yeah. So then it begs the question, what about data privacy? So how are we able to, actually in the Q&A, someone had just said, by downloading this, hold on, let me see, ChatGPT will be able to read and change all my data on websites. So how do we ensure data privacy protection? How do we ensure the ethical use of using ChatGPT and confidential information, for example?
Yeah, I think, and this is sort of linked to what Colin was saying there, which is, we're going to have an explosion of these. It's like Chatpoint 2.0, right? It like in terms of where we are. Chatbots, sorry, were this horrible term over the past sort of, I don't know, 5-6 years, because they never did what you wanted. If anything, they just turned customers off, and they sort of had a lot of false hope and promises. But we're in a new era, and these knowledge bases, or this access to information, is going to transform a lot of stuff. But of course, alongside that, there's privacy concerns, and there's data protection. Exactly the same with using ChatGPT. I said before, letting teams loose on these tools without the proper education and training is like leaving your toddler at home with a penknife and a box of matches. It's probably not the best idea, right? Because I've sat down with countless people who are using the other plugins on ChatGPT to upload PDFs, like confidential PDFs, and when I've asked them, do you know what they're doing with your data, they have no idea. And so I think there's an education piece which is needed, which is around that, and also around the accuracy of these new LLMs as well. So in a recent survey, nearly half of respondents thought ChatGPT and other large language models gave factually accurate answers 100% of the time. Now, they don't. It's a predictive machine. It's trying to predict what's next. It's not a truth-seeking machine right now. There's work going on in that area. So the thinking around what you're entering into it is really, really important. And then also the interpretation of what you're getting out is really, really important, because there's a sliding scale of, okay, I've taken something out of ChatGPT and I've posted it online and it's a little bit wrong and it's a bit embarrassing, to, hold on, we've made a decision or we've advised somebody, and the outcome of that is really catastrophic in terms of an event. So we've got to be careful in terms of how we're using these tools. And that really comes back to having alignment, having education, probably having a policy around how you're using the tools as they start to expand in your business. That would be the sort of the best advice. But Colin, what else would you add to that?
I was just reading some of the questions there, and actually someone said any specific tools that we could use on top of LinkedIn. And I'd like to address that because I see people commenting on my posts all the time, and it's very obviously AI, and I don't recommend it. You've got to have your own voice, and they're so painfully obvious and things like that. So that's one of the things I think. Sorry, Tom, your question was around
the data privacy aspect, and being careful with that. Views.
No, you've just got to be responsible. And I wrote about this today. Your company needs to have a policy to let people know and set clear boundaries, as in you're allowed to do this, but you're not allowed to do this, or you're allowed to do it this way, but not that way. And once you do that properly, then you can flourish with all these wonderful benefits. But obviously, everyone really needs to be careful that, someone doesn't burn the house down, like you said. AI is a wonderful tool for uploading a legal document and asking it questions and understanding it, but you don't want to write your legal document with AI unless you're a lawyer and you're going to check it afterwards, those sort of things. I think I've had some people say to me, oh no, my policy doesn't allow this or that and the other because this tool does that. There are always ways around it. Like we said, these personalized, private, fully secure chatbots, they're not even expensive. They're really not. And for a HR department to put let's face it, they have a huge amounts of data, and they can do that. I mean, one of the other example we used is that people don't think about is employee satisfaction surveys. I worked in big companies all my life, and it's 57 questions of rate this 1 to 7. No, now people can give their real opinion, and AI can do a brilliant summary of it. And the other example that you gave me, Tom, was there are certain things that people, want more of, which is time with their manager and better feedback and things like that. But your manager should not be writing your annual report with AI. That's totally impersonal, and we need the human element there. However, it's fine to be able to summarize an entire team or departments and see, okay, where are we doing well? What are the gaps, and what are we going to do to address that?
Yeah, and I think we'll see more and more, companies that we're talking to and we're working with as well. They're building their own sort of custom tools within AI that hold a lot of their company data in a secure way, that they can then ask questions of and access, and they're running those alongside existing LLMs such as ChatGPT or others. Facebook has a really big open source large language model which is out there as well, and they're running them alongside those. And I do think that's the direction of travel in terms of where companies will be and where they'll go.
But for now, is there, I mean, this is great, but is there a tool that we can use securely right now? Is there something that we could use and be able to put private company documents? Because we can have a policy and it can all be there on paper, but still our data might be being used by a third party. So is there something that companies can do in order to minimize that risk?
Well, I mean, right now, as far as I'm aware, there's not something that sort of you could hand to somebody in a team to easily use. There are other options that require setup. So there is something called private GPT, but again, it requires a bit more setup in terms of what's going on there. And I think it feeds back into really having a longer term view and a strategy on, okay, well, we might be here, but if we're going to use and we're going to want to access lots of our own private information, we need a plan around how we're going to do that. Because the upside is, if you build your own systems that are using your own proprietary data and information, and you're able to upskill teams and produce these really big efficiencies, then other people are going to find it hard to copy that because they don't have your proprietary information. So again, it can create quite a competitive advantage, which is why, so many CEOs, when they've been surveyed, think that organizations who get these things right are going to move ahead of the rest.
Okay. Well, then it goes to while I'm conscious of time, the question that everyone here is probably thinking, which is, will AI take my job? And I know that we all have very different opinions about this, but I'll let Colin go. Colin is the most positive of the lot.
Yeah, I am positive about it because it gives you anxiety if you only look at the negatives. Look, what I would say is this. The fact that you're in this webinar, the fact that you're interested in it, you hopefully will take some actions to incorporate some AI into both your daily life, into your job role, and maybe try and help your organization and your seniors think, what should we be doing right now to look forward to it? No, I don't think AI is going to take your job. It will augment your job. It will enhance your job. And ultimately, it should mean you're doing less of the boring, repetitive donkey work that you don't like doing and more of the important human aspect of it that you do. If your job is data entry and you're just copying and pasting from here to here, yeah, that's probably going to get replaced. And I mean, Tom can show you some really cool ways of using the ChatGPT tools to do amazing things. But what it should do is make you better at your job. I mean, I also think that the combination of AI and robotics, over the next while will be like the invention of the Gutenberg printing press in a way. I mean, books prior to that cost thousands of dollars, and then in comes the printing press and just reduces it by orders of magnitude. And that will happen in a very incredible way. I mean, energy and labor and things like that are going to go down. Yes, jobs will be lost, but all new technologies do create new jobs, and I choose to be positive about that. Maybe Tom can give the negative story, but it's not going to take your job unless you bury your head in the sand, is what I would say.
Yes, well, that's it. Okay, so yeah, the two sides to it are: if you're on this webinar, probably not going to take your job, or if you're seeking information, it's a great thing. On a broader scale, will it destroy jobs in the short term? I think definitely it will, because of the capabilities and what we're seeing already in terms of automating parts of businesses. Yes, it will. Where is it going to take jobs? Well, the more straightforward, repetitive tasks, the more administrative tasks. It's going to take some finance jobs, because there's on the simpler side, it's not going to mean that you don't need a CFO, but it's, in terms of the simpler side of finance, is going to take jobs. So in the short term, yes, I believe it will take jobs. In the long term, exactly as Colin said, I think what we've seen through history is new technology has been a net positive for job creation. And we probably don't even know the jobs that are going to be created in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Like my son, the job he does maybe doesn't exist yet. Right? Maybe it's not even been created. So I'm positive long term. I think short term, there's going to be a shake-up, and it's probably going to benefit those that are curious and trying to learn more about it than those that aren't. Yeah. Sarah, what do you think?
So I think it is going to take jobs, and I used to tell my team, because they would ask me the same thing, because I've always been pro AI and technology, and ChatGPT is like my work bestie. And my team would get worried, and they'd say, how come you're showing everyone about ChatGPT? It's gonna potentially take our jobs. And my answer is always the same. It's, if you're robotic and so black and white, and you don't look at context, and you act like that typical HR person that everyone hates, I hope AI takes your job, and I hope AI takes your job tomorrow, because the whole point of being in HR is to help the people and to make the business better for people. And so if all we're doing there is going by policy and do they meet the requirements? No, rejected. If that's how you're going to be as an HR professional, then yes, I'm pretty sure AI will take your job. So I think it's about a growth mindset. So it's not to be a fatalist, but if you have a growth mindset, and if you look beyond this stuck mentality that I'm in HR and I will always be in HR, and you start to look beyond and start to think, hey, I also have these skills, that connects very well to strategy. Maybe what I can do with my free time that AI has helped save me is I can learn about strategy. And so if you have this growth mindset, you could really see AI as something that's going to make you so much better at what you're good at, and it will take away all the stuff that we all hate and we all don't really enjoy doing, I think.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. So I think, shall we go into Q&A, or shall we discuss future of work a little bit?
Yeah, future work's good.
All right. So what do you guys think is coming up in the future of work? If you had a giant white yellow ball or whatever, and you could tell the future, how would you see the future of work going?
I'm gonna let Colin go first on this one.
I was about to say exactly the same to you. Look, I think that we're all going to be better at our jobs. And the reason is because previously, if someone had given you a project and you had to ideate it and make a plan and write a whole load of stuff, and you'd be scratching your head and lying awake at night about how I come up with all of the elements. Now you have this incredible assistant that it may not do it for you, but my God, it can do an amazing job of making sure you tick all the boxes and flesh it out. It'll make sure you do a really good quality job. And the other thing that's coming is, Tom and I both have sons of similar age. There's going to be tutors, AI personal tutors that will help them and gauge their areas in which they need help and where they don't. And that will come from a work perspective as well. Someone to guide you through and make sure that you've ticked all the boxes and that you're doing the job properly. And I think that's really an amazing thing. I think AI will augment and enhance our roles, take away the stuff that we don't like doing. And, the human element is really the most important thing. And even if you're an architect or you're some sort of other role where you spend a lot of time on computers, dealing with clients, dealing with people, that is all human. And that's what we've got to sort of focus on. And the things that are tedious and difficult will get easier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hopeful that like predicting the future is always very, very difficult. But what I'm hopeful for is that, much like you both mentioned there, that this new technology is used to help liberate us and enable us to do more of what we're good at and what we love, and not take us away from the stuff that's important. And we spoke about this before in the in relevance to HR. It's like, if we're using AI within these roles and departments, we've got to be careful about where we use it. Employee, reviews would be a great one, right? If I'm an employee of a team, and I think my review has been written by AI, that's not gonna make me feel engaged and wanted and respected, and that's probably not going to get the best work out of me. So we need to be careful where we use these things. If we can use them in the right areas, Sarah, as you said, we can free up our time, which means we've got more headspace to spend with people and work out what's important, or we've got more space to pursue our dreams, then it's going to be a much, much better outcome.
Love it. I'm of the same opinion. I think that our work weeks are gonna and we're gonna go from a 40-hour work week, and it's going to be a 20-hour work week going forward, because we're going to save so much money, so much time on AI tools, and then we could either pursue different jobs or different hobbies. But I really do see work reducing into the things that we love and the things that we love doing. Now, I'm going to go into a few of the many Q&A things that we've gotten. Now, first things first, a lot of people who have asked questions are asking if we'll get a summary of the Q&A and the questions answered. Is this something that we can do?
Yeah, we can summarize the Q&A. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were asking is this something that we can actually do with AI, and is this something that AI can help with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's interestingly, I don't know if we've got time now, but I took all the sign-ups to your original post, Sarah, who showed an interest, and I anonymized the data, so removed any names, email addresses, anything
That would
else.
be cool to show if you want to show
let's do it.
demo of how to
Should I show this?
Because that's it's a great way for people to understand how cool ChatGPT could or how useful it could be.
Yeah. So okay, so it's a 2-minute video. It's not long. So So I went to ChatGPT. I'm a subscriber, and I selected advanced data analysis, which allows me to upload a spreadsheet. So this is an anonymized spreadsheet. It contains job roles, basically, and the question that you were all asked on Sarah's post, which was, what are you interested in terms of this AI webinar for HR. So I've uploaded it. My ChatGPT, I've got custom instructions, which means it's slightly sarcastic in its responses back, which is why it's talking like this. But it's first of all analyzed the sheet. So it's getting a view on what is in this spreadsheet. So if you've got a very complex spreadsheet, this is quite handy. Here, it's fairly straightforward. Now I've asked it to summarize the job titles for me. So I was interested in, out of everybody who signed up or showed an interest in this webinar, where did they come from? And it does a pretty good job of just responding back with the different types of job titles, and then gives me
so funny.
its little comment, pretty HR heavy, which makes sense for an AI webinar for HR. But I've said, okay, that's all right, but I want a top 10 list. Can you break it down a bit further? So again, you can see how going back and forth with these prompts gives me different views and the spice of data analysis. So now it's broken down the roles. I've now asked it about the what you would like to learn question. So it's going in and it's looked at that, the fact that we've got 218 responses. It's broken down the main words that were used in the responses, which is good. But again, I want to understand a bit more. So I've gone back and I've asked it to further analyze it and give me a more in-depth analysis. And it's picked a specific machine learning model to do this. And it's now broken it into topics for me. So now I've got main words mentioned, and I've got a selection of topics now. There were over 300 people who answered, showed an interest. Of those, as you saw, we had like 218 something that answered questions. I've got the key topics. I've also got code here. So a lot of the work we do is we'll take this code and then we'll start building more custom solutions out of it. But you can see in 2 minutes how on that sheet, it would have taken somebody quite a long time to go through everything and start to categorize it. With the help of AI, you can speed those things up.
And the important thing to know is that is the most simple possible spreadsheet, because we anonymized it. So really what it was is job title, question, and Tom did all of that. Imagine if you had a massive spreadsheet with, hundreds of rows and or thousands of rows and hundreds of columns. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but if you don't know what to do with it, you just ask ChatGPT, what are some cool things I'm going to be able to do with it? And it will tell you.
Yeah. I think that's super, super cool. I love how sarcastic your tool is. Like I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So Tom's ChatGPT is funnier than 90% of people I know.
That's true.
I'd rather have a conversation with Tom's ChatGPT than anyone else. I try to make my ChatGPT so depending on my mood, I either make my ChatGPT, very, very emotional and empathetic, or like very to the point, and it's actually quite interesting. So we'll do that. All right. I know that we weren't able to get to a lot of the questions that were asked. So we're going to use the same tool that Tom just showed us now, where we will take the questions and we will summarize them and then send it out to the attendees who have attended. We'll also send them the meeting recording, so that you guys can have a look at it whenever you want. I just really want to thank both Tom and Colin for joining me on this webinar and educating us to the best of your ability in less than an hour. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us on. It was really good to be here. And yeah, hopefully we can do more.
Yeah, it was great. Look, we're only scratching the surface here. There's so much more. I hope it's been valuable. If you want anything, please reach out and we'd love to talk to you.
Amazing. Do you guys have time if you want to sit up for like 10 or 15 minutes in case other people want to? So we're okay to stay here an additional 10 to 15 minutes if people want to stay on the call, if you don't have any other calls, and then we can try and get to a lot of the Q&A maybe in person. Does that sound good to you guys?
No problem.
Yeah.
All the time you need.
Yeah.
All right, let's
We-
try and find the juicy ones.
We have Usher who's raised their hand, so we could see if they want to ask a question.
Oh yeah, or maybe
Yeah.
he's like high-fiving us.
Or he's high-fiving.
Do you have a yeah? Do you have a question that you'd like to ask in the Q&A?
Let's see. I'll bring them on. They can ask.
Okay. So I think Bhavna also has a question.
There we go.
Hey, hi. Thank you so much for setting this up. My question is, since we use ChatGPT, I mean, I also use it very extensively. Is there any other AI tool which can actually trace it back that this has come from an AI? As in, if I'm making an article,
Yeah.
and is it very easy for it to get exposed?
Wow, it was a really good question. So it was a lot harder. Sorry, it was a lot easier previously, but the detection tools are finding it harder to pick up AI generated content now. Interestingly, when we ran our last recruitment round, when we manually looked through some of the questions, we could see they had probably been generated by AI, and that was because we had people who were, for example, from the UK using a lot of American grammar, which tends to happen when you plug it into ChatGPT initially if you haven't changed your settings. It's quite verbose, some of the answers as well, maybe more so than others. So there are some clues in there. But again, the recommendation is don't take stuff straight out and post it. Use it as a co-writer, as a co-creator. Use it as a way to get you to an article, but really you want to be writing the finished article yourself and putting it out there.
Fair.
Could we do the same for Bhavna? I think she also has her.
Yeah, let's do the same. Hi.
Hi, guys, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, first of all, a big thank you, Sara, Tom, and Colin, for organizing this webinar. As a person who has a keen interest in AI, I've been following a lot of development and just trying to see how AI and HR can work hand in hand. Now, I run my own recruitment company here in Dubai, and I can already see AI is taking a lot of work off our table, and I want to know from you, how do we use AI to help us help our clients currently? Number one, your thoughts. I also, as a business owner, want to continue to remain relevant in the business. So what do we do differently as a business? If you have some thoughts you could share and possibly organize more webinars around it, it would be great. That what do we do to continue staying relevant as HR people who are providing recruitment services in the age of AI?
Who wants to
take that, Tom?
Shall I tell it? Well, I think recruitment ultimately is a people business, right? I mean, it's the ability to get the right people into the right roles, and what AI will enable you to do in that area is it will enable you to speed up some parts of that. It'll enable you to get more insight into some parts of that, particularly as we have job roles that are evolving and are changing. I always think within recruitment teams work incredibly hard, but it must be really challenging to stay on top of the different types of job role, even within an industry that are going on and that are changing. So I think, the speeding up of the right areas, and then as I spoke about earlier, for me, it's providing insight into the other areas so that you can make better decisions, more informed decisions. That's where I see it really happening, and how it's going to be slightly different. I mean, the goal is to go out and embrace it and to look at your business and to look at where right now within your business more input or insight or view of candidate information, of data, of your clients would be beneficial, and then start to look at how you can tackle that using some of these tools.
And Colin, maybe you could talk a little bit about the People GPT. Is that something that you're still? Is it called People GPT?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is one of the scarier things is that
Yeah.
someone has created GTP, which has amassed a incredible amount of knowledge about everybody out there, and then you can query it. Now, I think when Sarah, you went and looked at it and went, well, it's not quite as dangerous or as scary as I thought, but it sounds terrifying at the top of it, because at the end of the day, being able to ask ChatGPT a question about a person and then it claim everything. I mean, I've been on the internet for 20 years, message boards, Facebook, and if it, amassed at all, we all say some stupid things occasionally. So I hope it doesn't come back to bite me and get cancelled. But yeah, there are some nefarious ways that this can be used. But there's actually a really cool tool I came across the other day called Visible, which you put in your LinkedIn or other social profiles, and it will give you a review and it'll give you feedback on how are you being perceived out there in the world, and this is something that you'd never really be able to do. Okay, you could read it yourself, you could pay someone to do it, but now that's what AI does beautifully. It amasses huge volumes of text and it'll analyze it in any way you want. And apparently they even use the same actual data models as Cambridge Analytica did behind the whole 2020 election scandal. That really, really knows people extremely well. But all of this sort of stuff is coming. I mean, the other one we talked about is alongside the Meet Geek and things like that, I run something on my computer. Well, not now, I used to. And it watches and listens to everything. So if I think, what was that article I read the other day about, AI, I can do a search and it finds it. The guys have also come out with literally a little necklace, a pendant, and it sits there and records everything all of the time, because it wants to get to know you. And this will be the future. But obviously the privacy concerns there are astronomical. So I think we're going to see quite a few major changes over the next little while, as AI integrates into our lives with digital assistants, as we get more personalities into AI. And yeah, I predict instead of 2 to 3 years, it'll be very, very normal speaking with them.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you.
Thanks, Pavna. Do we have any more people in the attendees list who want to ask questions, or can I release Tom and Colin and let them be free?
Do we want to cover any of the other questions within the Q&A?
So I was looking at some of the questions. I guess for me, the main one would be, what budget would people need in order to like, it's budget season, it's coming up. How much budget would employees need to set aside for AI-based tools, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a tricky one. That is,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. It's probably easier to think about percentages of budget. Like I'm based in London, and the conversations that we've been having with relatively large organizations are that they've allocated a percentage of budget for AI, which is then being driven into pretty much every department in these organizations to work out what to do with. The numbers are going to vary dramatically by organization, but I think the approach is one of there's some clear ROI modeling you can do on a lot of these things, right? Where you're looking to start are the highest value areas in your business that either, as you said, Sarah, earlier, like take a lot of your time. It's questions that get asked again and again, right? That's a clear one to start. We're working with some really big creative teams who run multiple brands in global organizations. One of the most asked questions is, where's the logo for this brand? Now, their brand guidelines are like 250 pages long, and somebody can't find the brand guidelines, and then they don't know where the logo is stored in which system. So these questions where you can start to answer are a really good starting point, and you sort of build out from there. So we're seeing 10, 20, maybe 30% of budget being moved into AI initiatives at the moment, which is coming from different areas and different companies. But it's quite a big wave that's happening at the moment, and then it's deciding what to do with it. Yeah.
There was an article on CIO.com the other day that said basically AI has catapulted to the top of spending for CIOs. For good reason, and like in my article earlier, I think it's going to happen across the board in other ways. So that specific question was around chatbots. they can be done for a really small amount of money, so if you want, reach out, give us a shout, we can talk you through it, and we can tell you how. But it's not hundreds of thousands or anything. I mean, it could be in the long run, but you can get going a lot smaller than that.
And then the other question that I noticed a lot of people had was about our favorite couple, Meet Geek and Firefly.
Yeah.
And the audience would like to know, first of all, either of the tools, either Meet Geek or Fireflies, are they able to say who's committed to what, and basically put responsibility for certain actions that need to get taken?
Yeah, they will detail the actions, because right now, Zoom knows that I'm Colin Fitzpatrick and Sara and Tom's in as Generate, but it will set the actions. And I mean, I like to tell people that you should treat it like a virtual assistant who is taking notes. And then you can go, hey, Meet Geek, tell Tom that he has to, do X, Y, Z. And it's very, very good. I mean, it does get it wrong sometimes, but, so do humans. And I think that's worth remembering.
Yeah. So that was one question, and then the other question is, who's your favorite baby? Is Fireflies better, or is Meet Geek better, and why?
I am moving away from Meet Geek and I'm moving towards Otter, but I haven't tried Fireflies. But the stuff that you guys showed me was amazing. But what I would say to everyone is they do free trials, and the free trials enable you to do like 5 30-minute meetings a week or something like that, which obviously won't be enough for everything you do, but it's definitely enough to trial it.
Yeah, and with a lot of these tools and platforms, bear in mind as well that the newer startups are at risk of just being swallowed up by the big companies. So, for example, Zoom has already got an AI assistant that is started to add in to meetings, and you can ask it questions. Teams Premium has its own AI note taker. So these things are being baked into the existing tools as well. And of course, Microsoft will be building more than just that, given its investment in OpenAI.
Awesome. And then we have another question from Akhilesh, where they're asking about individual differences when it comes to answers received by AI. Do you guys have any insight on how AI can cater? Well, I think we saw Tom's very sarcastic ChatGPT, the funniest ChatGPT ever. But how does individual differences play a part? From my perspective, where I believe I love the fact that we have AI, and if we do have chatbots within organizations, the reason why it's so cool is because, especially somewhere like the UAE, where we have hundreds and hundreds of different nationalities, and not all of them have English as their first language, with these chatbots that are AI powered, you could literally ask this question in whatever language you want, and it would reply in that same language. So I love that inclusion, or at least the diversity aspect of just being able to speak any language at the click of a button. That's something that's very, very important for me. But I don't know, Tom, Colin, do you have any other examples of how AI could?
Yeah, let me tell you this. I just spent a year in Brazil because it's where my wife is from, and we then went off for an adventure. And as much as I intended to learn Portuguese, that really didn't happen. So I was very, very restricted in my abilities. And sometimes I would be out on my own and I had enough. But if I'm talking to someone and then they start yabbering away and I'm pulling out Google Translate, it's fairly hopeless for that. But stuff is coming out now where you just hold the phone and I speak English and it speaks Portuguese, and the guy speaks Portuguese and it speaks English to me. But there's other stuff where we could get this meeting recording, we could pump it through a software and it will translate it into Japanese, but it'll also sync our lips. So the days of like badly dubbed movies are now over, and AI is going to do an amazing job of bringing the world together, whether it's for tourism or business or entertainment. It is just going to solve that problem of translation now, which I think is incredible. And it'll be probably done live on Zooms as well. I've done Zooms internationally where I had to pay extremely expensive translators, $10,000 to translate into two languages or something. That's gone.
Love it. All right, I'm doing a hard stop unless, Tom, you have one more thing to say. This is your last reply. Make it good.
Making good. God, the pressure there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Colin was right. There are the live stuff is brilliant, and I've got a friend I know actually who's got glasses, and he's built
Oh, wow.
real-time translation into the glasses so that when you're talking to somebody, it can do it and you can see it on the
That's so
sunglasses themselves. So
That's incredible.
maybe wearables are the next thing, but it's a whole nother webinar. So
Awesome.
I would just say thank you so much. I mean, we've still got half of the people here that even showed up in the first place still on here. So thank you very much. I really hope it's been valuable. Please delve in and try the tools that I've recommended. I'll put a bunch more in the email that we send out. And yeah, I mean, if you want help, if your company needs help, whether it's chatbots or other areas of HR, I mean, because we didn't even get into the use cases, and there's like a dozen different use cases of areas of HR that can really benefit from AI. So Tom and I'd be more than happy to help your company do that, to show you or just, you know, give you some advice.
Cool. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
Thanks, Sara. Well done for organizing. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks
a lot.
everyone
Thank
for
you, attendees.
staying
Have
attended.
a great day. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
bye, everybody. Thank you.